So today's session, let me just check, I've not got any questions yet. Okay, if you do have any questions, by the way, throughout today's session, please do pop it into the chat box and I will have some time at the end, hopefully, to go back over any questions. If you want me to go and look at something again, please do let me know. So today's session is ChatGPT versus Claude. And we're looking at a couple of the new updates that have happened recently within the last sort of week or so. We're going to look at deep research, which has now been brought to Claude, and as part of that also the web feature that Claude now has, which it kind of reluctantly hasn't had web feature for ages, whereas ChatGPT has for probably, over a year or so now. So it's really behind on that, but we now do have that feature, and we also have the deep research. They've also both released an integration feature. So Claude calls it integrations, whereas ChatGPT has called it connectors. So we're going to look at those, a couple of those, just really kind of basic overview and see what that's going to mean, what that's going to look like, maybe some potential ways you could be using that. But really, I'm just showing you what it is and how you might implement that. And then finally, as part of that integrations, I think it's very important that we do have a quick talk about safety. If you are giving ChatGPT access to all of your files and all of your calendar and your emails and things like that, we do need to have a bit of consideration about how we're approaching that in a safe way so that we're not breaching any GDPR rules, whatever it is in the US or other countries. We are being safe with data protection. So we're going to look at all of those kind of things. I will preface this by saying, as John said at the start there, I just use ChatGPT, and as does John, normally just uses ChatGPT, and we haven't really looked very much at Claude. I do have a personal preference for ChatGPT, and I do think that as new things come out in Claude, for example, if we get an update in Claude, wait a week or two and ChatGPT will come out with something even better. So that's generally been the experience over the past couple of years, is that ChatGPT maybe takes a little bit longer to get to that point of giving you something, but when it does give it you, it's just that little bit better. It's the models behind it work a bit smarter, or the user interface just works a little bit nicer. It's just got a couple more extra features to it, or it's more widely available because they put it on the free plan rather than the paid version. Whatever it is, ChatGPT always just feels to me like it comes out on top. But for instances like a couple of days ago where ChatGPT was down, did anybody notice that? ChatGPT was down and my day was ruined. But for instances like that, where ChatGPT is not available, it's good to have that backup, and it's also good to have an idea of what tool is actually going to perform the best for each different task that you want to do. So it's good to weigh them up against each other. Sometimes just use the same prompt in both platforms and see which answer you prefer, because it may be that they just give something slightly different, a slightly different nuanced answer or layout that you just slightly prefer. So it's nice to play them off against each other. So first of all, we're going to look at Claude's new deep research and web feature. So they released this, I think, just last week. Originally, they gave it to just the Max plan. So actually, whilst I tell you about the plans available, I'll bring this up so that you can see this. So this is the available plans for Claude. So on the free plan, deep research is not available. Initially, they only gave us deep research on the Max version, which I've noticed has actually gone up in price. Last I checked, this was $75 a month. It's now $100 a month, probably because they have added this new feature. So they gave it to Max, but it is now trickled down into the Pro version as well. So if you're using Pro, you can use the deep research feature. It is going to be limited, but as ever, it's quite vague on what the actual limit is. I can't say you get 10 per month or anything concrete like that. It tends to be quite vague. You just know that you get less on the Pro than you do with the Max. If anybody does know the exact figures, let me know in the comments. But as far as I'm aware, there's no concrete line. but you do get more with the Max. Obviously, it is, again, more expensive to do so. So I find that I am using the deep research feature for actual business purposes, because I do a lot of demonstrations for you guys as well, so I probably use it a little bit more than I would, so that I can do the demonstrations for you. But for personal and for business use, I maybe use it 5 times a month, maybe a little bit more than that, and you definitely get that on the pro version. So if that is enough for you, then that might be the one that you go for, if that impacts your decision at all. So as part of the deep research feature that we've now got with Claude, they have also given us web access. So you can switch this on in Claude and you can utilize the web. It's also going to be super useful doing the deep research. They had to give us the web access to do the deep research, because the way that deep research works is it goes and accesses hundreds of source materials online and then summarizes an answer or a report for whatever it is that you've asked it for information on, and then it brings that back to you. But it has looked at hundreds of reports, hundreds of sources within a couple of minutes. So it's really, really powerful in how that works, and it needed to have that web integration to be able to do that. So we now do have web access as well. So let's go into Claude then, and I'm going to show you where this is. And just how to access that. So let me just bring that up. So, and hopefully that's big enough on the screen for you guys. If I know the wording maybe is a little bit blurry, but I can possibly zoom in if you want me to zoom in. So if we go to a new chat, you type in your chat query here, whatever it is that you're trying to research. And then we have a selection of tools here along the bottom. So we can add extra documents with the plus icon. We have a drop-down list of tools, which I'm going to talk about integrations in just a minute. So that's where we're going to look at that. We have this feature for extended thinking, which is similar to ChatGPT's O3 model and O4 model, where it uses more logical progressive thinking rather than just summarizing things very quickly. But we now also have this research feature. You will see there that it says it's still in beta mode, so it's still being tested and maybe is still not perfect, which I have noticed, as there are some inconsistencies that I've noticed as I've been testing the deep research feature and asking it several times to do something. But what we do is we just click that deep research button, we type in whatever it is we want to research, and we click go, and off it goes. So for the example that I'm showing you here, and I've put this same one into Claude and into ChatGPT, I've asked it to research UK tax implications for crypto income for small businesses. So that's just a random thing that we just came up with to get it to research. But it's quite a lengthy topic. So when you're doing your deep research, you're generally wanting to use this for something that it's quite a broad, big subject, that there's quite a lot to delve into with that, or that there's lots of different areas to look into. So with this one, we've got, or what are the tax implications? We need some information about how crypto income works, and we need to know about small businesses, how that's going to impact them, and a broader kind of cultural sense of what's happening with business and economy. So it's quite a large sort of subject for it to cover there, which is why we want to use the deep research feature for it to take its time with that answer and really give us something in depth. So the thing that I've noticed that it tends to be different here is, and I'll go into ChatGPT's version in a second, is that what it did is I gave it that prompt and off it goes immediately, starting to do its research, rather than asking me any further questions or clarifying anything. Okay, which ChatGPT does that. It asks you questions before it goes into, which by the way, when it does that and it dives in, it's now eating into your deep research allowance. Okay, so remember we've got that limit on how many times we can use deep research. So if you've not given it a prompt that's got enough detail and it immediately goes off and starts doing your research, you just need to be aware that it's going to be using your allowance. So you want to be very careful in getting your prompt right first and giving it as much context as you possibly can. I've given it a very simplistic one just for the purposes of this demonstration, but if there are specific areas you want to cover, specific information you really need to have in there, or you need to give it extra context, then make sure you include that in the first prompt, because I've found that it doesn't always ask those clarifying questions. Now, sometimes it has asked me those, can you give me more information, before it goes on, but sometimes it doesn't. So at this point, whilst it's still in testing mode, just make sure you are really fleshing out those prompts that you give it. So what it does is it starts doing a research plan first, so we can see what this looks like as we click into the research plan here, and we've got the little drop down. It's going to tell you exactly what its process is of how it's working. So first of all, it's doing an assessment and breakdown. What are the main concepts? Okay, UK taxation, cryptocurrency, small businesses, HMRC guidance. Okay, it's going to look into all of those different areas. It needs to look into different entities like HMRC, different business structures, sole traders, partnership, limited companies, the relationship, how does crypto activity map to tax categories? Okay, we need specific facts. There's temporal constraints, so tax year, it's considering the specific year from 2024 to 2025 and recent updates. User expectations, and we have the form of answer, so it's going to give me a detailed research report. So that might actually be a nice kind of way of formatting a prompt if you want to give more context. You know, what are the main concepts? What are the key entities that need to be looked at? What relationships? If there's any timing constraints you need to think about. What kind of answer do you want? Do you want it as a research report? Do you want a comparison table? You know, what kind of thing do you want? That might be things that you include in your prompt, but even from that simplistic prompt, that's how it's breaking it down, and that's how it's going to do the research. It's looking at what kind of queries it needs to do for that. So this is going to require multiple perspectives. The 10 different aspects all relate to the central question, but require different methodological approaches. I can't say that word. Benefits from exploring different angles, and each perspective contributes unique insights. Okay, so it's detailing how it's going to do that work. So here it's given me a detailed research plan as well, development for this first query. I'll deploy 4 to 5 sub-agents. So what it's going to do is it's sending off kind of its little minions to go and do the different tasks that need to be done. And this all happens, by the way, this all happened in 7 minutes and 5 seconds. And it looked at 324 website sources. So that's how much information it's gathering to do this. You can view those sources if you like as well. So I'm doing that by, it gives me this first box. I'm going to click in there, and then I just click on where it says gathered 324 sources. I can see the most popular one here was gov.uk, which is the UK's government website. And this has been viewed 104 times, so lots of different pages on there have been accessed. If I click into this, I can see every single source that it has used. I can scroll through these, and if there's anything that I want to go and look at in more depth, or I need to go and fact check, I can go and click on these and do extra research. But as you can see, there is a lot of pages that it has looked at here. So 324 sources. That's where it's drawing all of its information from in 7 minutes. So can you imagine if you wanted to get a human to do this, how long that would take? That would take days. That would take a long time. But this is taking 7 minutes. So it's so powerful, this deep research tool. So we have that, we have the research plan, we have the sources that it goes into. It then generates the report for me. So on the right hand side, here's the report that it's made. Now, as you look through this, generally the way it formats it when it does a report is it gives you a bit of an introduction with a summary of what it's found, and then right at the end we get a conclusion as well. So if you wanted to skip straight to the conclusion, read that to get a quick summary, and then when you've got more time, go back through this in more depth. You can see that it's quite a long report here. You can also notice that as we go through this, there are links to the sources that it's referencing as you go through. So here's a fact. It says recent changes include revised capital gains rates up to 24%. So that's obviously a fact that it has pulled from a source somewhere, and it has immediately afterwards put the source that it has got that information from. So if you wanted to go and fact check that, see where that information came from, you can click on that and go and find that out. So, and you can see that for this paragraph, it's used a couple of them here as well. So I could click on any of those and go and view those pages and go and double check everything. But this is a really in-depth report. So it's got how HMRC categorizes crypto income across business activities, trading classifications, capital gains treatments, mining activities, staking rewards. And by the way, I know absolutely nothing about crypto, so I can't vouch on how accurate this is. But if you understand this subject, you can see how in depth it is and how much research it's done to get to this point. Current tax rates it's found and business structure implications. So it's looked at the businesses, sole traders, limited companies, partnerships, and how they're going to be affected. Essential record keeping and documentation requirements. So how is that going to change if we start using crypto? VAT implications for business crypto transactions, recent regulatory updates and compliance changes, compliance risks and penalty frameworks, available reliefs and tax planning opportunities. So that's really powerful. That could be something that you then look at incorporating into a service. If you're working with small businesses that are taking in crypto income, then that you can now offer a tax planning opportunity to them because you've got this research. Business structure optimization strategies, and then we've got the conclusion. So obviously I'm not going into massive detail on all of the information in there, but you can see that it's a very nice long report. It's very detailed. It's done 324 sources to get that information, so it's well researched, and it does all of that in 7 minutes. So that is amazingly powerful. The couple of things that I've noticed that at this stage are maybe still just a bit buggy because it's still in the new testing beta mode, is that obviously that first point is that it doesn't always ask those clarifying questions, so you need to make sure your prompt is perfect before you send it off. There is a feature over here on the right. You can click copy to copy all of that text. You can go and paste that into a Word document and then save that if you want to send it to somebody else. You can click the drop down button, and what you should be able to do here is save it as a PDF. So you can download it as the markdown if you wanted to do that. And there is a reason why that would be, it would be helpful. LLMs read markdown much better. And markdown, by the way, it's just a computer language where it uses hashtags and symbols and stuff to outline when things are emboldened or italicized or anything like that. Large language models read markdown better. So if you wanted to download this as markdown, add this to your files, then whenever you upload this report in order to ask further questions of ChatGPT, you can upload it as a markdown file instead. So that's super useful. But you can also save as a PDF. Now I have noticed that this doesn't quite work for me. There's a way to get to it. But what I would like is if I hit that button, it just downloaded to a PDF. But what it does for me is it opens up the print option. So this is what the report's going to look like. It's very basic, but it opens up the print. And if I go down to more settings, I can open that PDF in a preview. So this is a bit of a workaround. I can open that in a preview. And then when the preview comes up, so you can hopefully see that now, I've dragged that onto the screen, I then have to go and export that as a PDF file. So it's a bit of a three-step process, multi-step process to get to it. But eventually I can save that as a PDF to my documents. Alternatively, I hit the copy button and I paste that into a Word document and I go and save that. You can also publish it and then grab the link to that and send that link over to your team or your client if you've done some research for them, whoever it is that you're sharing that research with. You can share it with them. I do think that when you do that, it removes all of the links to all of the source material. So it's only sending the report, or you're only looking at the report, and you no longer can click into all of the source material to look at that. So just be aware of that. And I'm going to look at ChatGPT, and then I'm going to look at the difference as well between the two reports that it creates there. So that's the deep research feature on Claude. And just one extra point to note there that I've got in my notes is that because it takes a couple of minutes, you may think, oh, I'm going to set that going and then I can't use Claude or I can't use ChatGPT, but both of them I've tested this. If you set it going with a research report and then you then start a new chat and go and do something else, it is going to continue doing the research report in the background, and you'll get a notification pop up to say your report's ready or your deep research is finished. And it will keep doing both. So it'll do the deep research and it will answer your current queries if you're wanting to keep using it. So just a point to note there. So let's then look at the same on ChatGPT and see how they compare. So let me first of all show you the pricing structure for that. So on ChatGPT, you do have deep research available, right even down to the free level, so I can get it on my phone. I don't think you get very many of these. It actually might even be one. I've not really tested that, but you don't get a lot of them. And I do think it's a very cut down version of the tool. I don't think you're getting the full tool. Because when I've used it previously, I have the free version on my phone and I've used that on there, and it generates quite a small answer. But you do at least have access to it on the free version. You get it obviously in the Plus, and then at the Pro level is where you get more access to it. So it's in that similar kind of structure there. The Plus is the $20 or 20 pounds a month I'm seeing here. £200 a month is for the Pro, and then you've also got the Team and the Enterprise, so it should be available on every feature, on every package there. Now let's see what it looks like. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to start a new chat, and we're going to type in our query in there, and then there's this tool drop down menu here, and you're going to click Run Deep Research. So it's now going to use the deep research feature to complete your query. And we're going to look at integrations as well. But right now I could also choose from my sources here to incorporate into that whatever else I've got attached. So my Dropbox, whether I want to use web search or not. So I can do a little bit more fine tuning there. But let me go back to the... So here's the example of the exact same prompt, the cryptocurrency one. So research UK tax implications for crypto income for small businesses. So the first thing that it's done before it starts eating into my deep research allowance is it's asked me some clarifying questions. So could you please clarify a few points to tailor the research accurately? What type of small business is this? Is it sole trader, limited company, or partnership? What kind of crypto income is being received? Trading, mining, staking, airdrops, payments for services? And number 3, are there specific concerns or scenarios you want the research to cover? E.g. VAT, corporation tax, record keeping, allowable expenses. Now, I don't know much about this subject, so I've just kind of said all of the above. I want a holistic answer. So I've just answered the first one. I said solo entrepreneurs. Question 2, I just said all of the above, and question 3, I said cover all areas. If you had a specific area you really wanted to make sure that was covered, you would just answer that, put number 1, and then you would put the answer to that question and just give it that extra context. So it first asks that clarifying question, which helps make sure it's got a real sense of what you want, and then it goes off and it does its research. So noticeably, this takes a little bit longer. So the Claude one took 7 minutes and 5 seconds. This one took 10 minutes, and it only looked at 37 sources, whereas Claude looked at 324 or something like that. So Claude is quicker, but it's looking at more material. ChatGPT is it's working harder, and it's not looking at as many sources. We then have the report here, so you can see how it looks visually. Visually, I think it does look a little bit neater and a bit nicer that we've got the headings, but a lot of the content of these two is actually very similar. So we've got cryptocurrency, trading, buying and selling income, income tax versus capital gains, determining trade status, cryptocurrency mining income, nature of the activity, trading business, okay, cryptocurrency staking income, airdrops and free crypto asset receipts, what might be really useful is if you've done this on both platforms, Claude and ChatGPT, it might bring up different things. So you might get them to both do the research report, and then you just got extra research, right? But it's a really nice, detailed, long report. You know, even though it's looked at 37 sources, whereas Claude has looked at 324, it's still a very detailed report with lots of information in here. I mean, I'm still scrolling through it. I've been scrolling through for 20 seconds. I've not hit the bottom yet. So this is a lot more in depth. It's a lot more detailed. Now, it's pro and con whether you want that, because Claude did a great job, but it summarized it into maybe a slightly smaller report. It's maybe slightly shorter. And maybe what you want is more of that quick summary idea, or maybe you want something more in depth. So, you know, consider what kind of length you want. You can add that to the prompt. You can say in the prompt, I want your report to be between 500 to 1,000 words, or I want your report to be super comprehensive, detailed, and in-depth, and that might change the length that you get of that. So that's how that works in ChatGPT as well. What I want to show you is what those reports look like when you download them, because there is just a slight difference in how they look. So I recently used this research report to plan, help my sister plan for a trip to New York City, where she's wanting to go in December, and I downloaded the report for that. So the ChatGPT report that you get, which by the way, I haven't shown you how you do that. What you do is when you've got the report here, you click the share button, and that will allow you to, that allows you to share it with other people. If you scroll to the top of where the report is, which takes me a minute, there's a little button here on the top right of the report where you can download that as a report, okay? So that's what I'm looking at now. I have it saved here, and it's this one. So this one's the ChatGPT one. I think it looks a little bit nicer, and what is useful is that it has the sources in there as clickable links. So as you're going through the report that it's created, you can click on that, you can go and look at the sources. So for this example, I did a research report for a budget-friendly trip to New York, and it's talking about booking flights, booking accommodation. I now want to go and click on those links to go and book the hotel that it has suggested. So this is really useful that it has those sources pulled through, okay? So this is not a non-accounting example, but the fact that it has that feature is really helpful. It's also, we've got this nicely designed, we've got a table, a comparison table, because it was looking at various different hotels. We've got images pulled through here as well. And then right at the end, we have a list of the sources that have been referenced in here as well. So those are the differences between that and the Claude report. So the Claude report, which is this one, annoyingly for me, because I'm picky, it does it in a portrait version. So no, sorry, other way, landscape. It does it in landscape, so it's not in an upright paper. It's a landscape report, which is kind of annoying. It's maybe not as pretty. You can't click on the links, so it shows that there should be a link there, but you can't click on the link, at least not in the way that I've managed to download it, by doing it that way, where it's print and then go and find it, and etc. But still a really good report. I like how it kind of bullet points everything out, rather than ChatGPT tends to write more in paragraphs in its report, whereas this Claude tends to be a bit more bullet points. But again, you can add that in your prompt and say, I want you to largely use bullet points, and it will change that for you. So those are the differences that I've noticed. It also doesn't have the sources right there at the end as well. So a quick recap of the differences between those there then. Claude does not ask clarifying questions unless you specifically request that it does, whereas ChatGPT does. It asks those questions before it starts. Claude doesn't currently have a convenient download. You can get to that download, but it's a bit of a faff at the minute. I'm sure they will fix that. Whereas ChatGPT has a good download, which has the links incorporated in it. I'd say the reports are a similar length. ChatGPT seems maybe a little bit more in depth, but they're a reasonably similar length depending on what you're researching, and you can also put into your prompt how long you want that report to be. They both run in the background if you're doing another task, so that's really helpful. Claude is just bigger and larger in the amount of research that it does. So it does 445 sources it did for the New York report, whereas ChatGPT did 27 for the New York report. So, you know, maybe you could get a bit overwhelmed with the Claude one, but it's also doing a massive, massive job for you. So some different things to consider. What might you use deep research for? It's one of these things where it's kind of an open book. You can use it for whatever you can put your mind to. Generally, it's for large tasks that need a lot of different areas to be covered in one. So things like summarizing new legislation or tax codes, tax changes even, preparing content for client newsletters or webinars, writing up client-specific advisory insights from long PDFs. So you could upload information and get it to write a report or do deep research based on the information you give it, as well as it using the website, the web. You could give it information as they create a report based on these files. And we can do even further with that when we look at integrations. We can also analyze competitor pricing pages or firm benchmarking reports. Okay, so it's one of those things where it can kind of do anything you can put your mind to. You just need to know what it can do. So next up is Claude integrations then. So this is available on the Pro plan or higher. It's not on the free plan. And what it can do is it can connect with Google Workspace primarily. So you've got Gmail, Google Calendar, and Google Drive. And then you also have GitHub. So GitHub is for coding, really, if you're into the coding side of things. So, I mean, I might as well just jump straight in to show you how that looks. So let me bring Claude back up. And we're going to start a new chat. So there you go, there's Claude. So my integrations, what I'm going to do is I go down to the settings in the bottom left corner. And my integrations sit here. So this is where I can add them. And you can see I've got Google Drive as an option there, and I've connected it. Now, I don't really use Google Drive. I've got a couple of random personal documents in there, but I just connected it just for the purposes of showing this. I've got Gmail, I've got Google Calendar. So if that's something that you use Google Calendar to plan all of your events, you can connect Google Calendar, and then you can ask Claude, what have I got on this week? Can you help me prepare for my meetings this week? And prioritize whichever one comes first or something like that, because it now understands your schedule. You'll also notice I've got Zapier in there, which is a custom one. So with the integrations, the ones that are already built into the platform are these ones that you can see here: the Google Drive, the Google Calendar, the Gmail, and the GitHub. Those four are the ones that are already set up in Claude. You can add your own integrations. So when I click this Add Integration button, I have to add an integration name and I have to add a URL. So this is where it goes into something called MCPs, which it gets a bit techy, but it does give you a selection of pre-built ones. So if I click on the option that gives me here, pre-built ones, I think I already have this website open. So pre-built integrations here using MCP, it gives you the link that you would need to set those ones up. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't use any of these tools, so I can't really test anything. The only one that I can use, which we have in the business, is Zapier. Now, when I did try and connect that, it didn't work. So it's maybe still new, it's still a bit buggy, but what I would do is I would copy this link that it gives me here. I'd go back to Claude. I'd just give it the name of whatever it is that I'm using. So generally for this, I'll call it Zapier. I'm going to call it Zapier 2 because I've got another one in there. And then I would just paste in that link. Now, when you are adding integrations in this sense, you have to consider the safety. Are we adding a reputable website, a reputable app or source or application? So just you need to be considerate of that. And I click add, Okay, yeah, it's not going to let me do it because I've already got that in there. But that's how I would do that. I would just copy and paste the one from the pre-built section. So if you're somebody that uses Asana for your organization, that's one of the options. You can grab that and then you can link it to that. So then what you would do now that it is an available option is you would click connect and go and sign in on Zapier as well so that it connects it to your account. It didn't work for me, so that could be that it's still in testing phases. But when that does link, that is going to be something that's incredibly powerful because Zapier connects to all of our other tools. So I could then go and say, can you send out an email because it's connected to our MailChimp. Okay, you also want to be careful with that because it now has access to do all of those things. So I'm going to talk about safety in a second as well. So that's how that works. That's how you would set that up. Now then, when you start a new chat, if we go to the search and tools feature here, we can see all of our potential connected apps listed here along the bottom. So I have got a Google Drive attached. It's got about 3 files in it, but if I wanted to ask a question about, let's say Google Drive has all of your business documents in there, and you want to ask a question about your business, then you can start a new chat, go to the search and tools feature, and just switch on the toggle the Drive search, because what you want it to do is look through your documents to give you that answer, rather than it look through its training materials and everything that it's been trained on, or look through the web. So I can turn web off and say, I only want you to look at my files to give me this answer. Okay, same with Gmail search there as well, and calendar search. And from this area as well, you can also add those integrations. So it's going to take you to that area rather than going through the settings if that's what you want to do. And along the bottom here as well, I also have an option to connect more apps. So that's how that would work. That's how that would look. I want to show you the version on ChatGPT, which is instead called Connectors rather than integrations, but it's the same process, same premise here. So I'm going to go to the blue icon on the top, and I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to scroll down here on the left to connectors. So as ever, it's come in afterwards, later, and it's done things a little bit better. So there are a lot more preset integrations in there. We've got here Box, GitHub, Gmail, Google Calendar, and Google Drive, which is the same as Claude. We've also got HubSpot, so if you're using that as your CRM, your email system, that's really cool. Linear, Outlook Calendar, Outlook Email, and SharePoint. So that's all Microsoft, and Teams as well. So if you're using those tools, that's really, really powerful. We've also got Dropbox, which I have connected just to test it. You'll need to be aware, each of these individual connectors can only be used in certain ways, and it will inform you of that. So Dropbox can only be used when you're doing deep research or asking a chat, okay? So that's pretty much all the time, right? But some of them, so let's find out. Gmail, for example, only works with when you're doing deep research. So you can't just ask a regular chat and say, can you pull up some files for me in a regular chat? You have to use deep research in order for it to access your Gmail. And of course, there are limits to how many deep researches you can do. So just be aware of that. Annoyingly, I do believe there is a feature available now to add your own connectors in the same way that we can add our own integrations on Claude. It hasn't rolled out to me yet. I've seen other people using it, so it is available, but they tend to roll these things out bit by bit to people, and it hasn't hit me yet, so I can't access it. But it works in a very similar way to the Claude version, where you give it a name, you give it that link to that server, and you can connect various different applications. So if we use MailChimp, maybe we would connect MailChimp through this. Maybe if you use Slack and that's how you communicate with your team, you could connect Slack, and then it would be able to summarize your conversations and give you an action item list. Okay, lots of different things you could do. If you use Notion or Trello, we use Trello to store all of our business information and our projects that we're working on, and it's how we communicate. I could give it access to Trello, and then it can summarize that information for me and bring that information into ChatGPT so that I can ask further questions about that. So that's going to be really, really powerful. I'll show you how it works with Dropbox, which is the only one that I've really been able to connect it with. So just to show you what this kind of looks like on ChatGPT. So I'll show you how you access that. So you go to a new chat, and where it says tools, there's an option here that says search connectors. I can then access a drop-down menu which shows me all of the connectors I have available, and I just toggle it on or off if I want it to access that. So I've only got Dropbox on here at the minute. I would then ask a question related to whatever I want it to look for in that. So here's one I prepared earlier. So in our Dropbox is all of the files about our business. So we've got Value Pricing Academy and AI Academy. So I've just asked it, can you give me a summary of the AI Academy? And it's going to go and look at the documents that it has access to and then give you a summary based on that. So let's see what it says. The AI Academy is a standalone membership program designed specifically for accountants and bookkeepers who want to implement AI, particularly ChatGPT, into their firms. It aims to equip professionals with practical, real-world skills to enhance efficiency, profitability, and value delivery using artificial intelligence. Whether you're brand new to AI or looking to deepen your knowledge, the Academy provides structured guidance tailored to the needs of accounting professionals with a strong emphasis on actionable results over theory. So I think that's a pretty good summary. It gives you a link here as well that says what sources it has accessed in order to find that information. So if I click on that, it's going to take me to the file in Dropbox. So I can immediately see where it's got that information from. And that's just the overview, by the way. It's then also gone on to say what's included, live monthly training, on-demand courses, prompt library, the bonus content, community and support. So it's found all of that information from our documents. Key skills you'll learn, who it's for, pricing, platform details. It's found all of that information for me. And then, so as it goes through, it's told you, okay, to find this specific piece of information, I looked at this document. And then at the bottom, we have all of the sources that it accessed to give that answer. Oh, and it doesn't seem to be working for me right now. Okay, that's a bug. But normally what I have seen it do is when I click that sources button, it opens along the right hand side all of the different sources that it has access to get that information. So for some reason that's not working right now though. So maybe I want it to find a document for me. I just gave it a scenario. I've been asked to do a speaking session around AI. Can you give me a good topic based on what's in our Dropbox? And also, by the way, if you type into your chat the word Dropbox, like when you're using Canvas, if you type in the word Canvas with a / in front of it, it will automatically shortcut to use Dropbox. It will highlight it in blue and it will make sure that it knows it's accessing Dropbox rather than going and selecting it on the toggle. So just a different way of accessing that. So it gave me a couple of suggestions that I could do, how accountants can save hours each week from compliance to advisory, etc. If I wanted to find a specific file, I know I've got this file, but I can't remember where it's saved. Can you point me towards the presentation slides for the last Essential AI session I did, 2505? And it's actually failed. It hasn't found the right one, but again, it's not working for me here. When I did this earlier and I clicked all of the sources that it looked at, the right one was in the list of sources, but the one that it said, this is the one you want, actually wasn't right. So it's still a work in progress, I think, and it's going to take some time to get perfect. I think it is going to be important that you label your files in a way that makes it easy to reference when you're talking with ChatGPT. So we label a lot of hours based on the curriculum that we worked on, and then this one is 2505, so we've got all the dates involved in there as well. So that makes it easier for it to find things for you. And then this was actually an accident. I accidentally hit button 2 or something, and sent that in there. And what it did was it went, okay, well here's slide 2. So I didn't ask it anything, I accidentally hit the button too. So I'm still learning all the different things it can do, but it then found the content from slide 2, summarized that to me and said, this is what's on that slide. So it can look into the document, pull that information and give that to you. So that's a really, really powerful things that you can do. So I wanted to just very quickly talk about some safety around that idea, the fact that we have these different integrations. So let me bring my slides back up. So a couple of things just to make sure that you are being as safe as possible. Just be very sensible. Because the way that it is, what we expected was that you would be able to connect it to Dropbox or Google Drive and select the files you want to give it access to, but that's not the case. It's an all or nothing situation. You're connected to the entirety of my Dropbox or none of it. So because of that, it kind of poses a couple of potential annoyances, but also potential issues. If you've got information in there that you don't want to share because it's confidential or anonymous or personal data, personal information, you've mixed your business with personal stuff in there, it's going to access everything. If you've got multiple businesses and you've got everything saved in one Dropbox area, so for example, you have a bookkeeping business and you also have a consulting business as well, it's going to access all of the files to give you answers. So it might give you information from the wrong area. Okay, so you're going to probably want to separate out some of your information. So ways that we can get around the safety stuff or be as safe as possible. When you connect Dropbox or Google Drive, you connect it using your sign-in. So what you could do is create a new admin or a new user and only give them access to the documents that you are happy to share with ChatGPT, and then sign in on ChatGPT with that user's information so that it's only accessing those files that you want to give it permission. Okay, so that's a potential thing that we can do. Disconnect the integrations when you're not using them, especially if you've got something like Zapier and it works, because it could go and just do things on, send things on your Zap or publish Zaps and stuff and trigger them without you really meaning to do it. So if you're not using it, just disconnect it so that it's not accessing that information at that time. If there are files in your stores that are personal, confidential information, encrypt those files, put a password on those files, or anonymize the data if you can, to make sure that it's not accessing that. Make sure you look up the specific data protection laws in your country, and make sure that you are being compliant with whatever it is you're doing. So you'll need to look that up specifically. If you want to, look it up, grab the website URL, give it to ChatGPT and ask for a summary, but just make sure that you're aware of what the rules are and you're following it. I would recommend that you update your privacy policy on your website and throughout your business so that you are covered, because you're letting people know that that's what you're doing, that's what you're using. And then kind of even further than that, I would make sure that you have a specific AI usage policy. So this is something that you could go through with your clients when you're onboarding them or you're signing them up, is just to say, just so you're aware, we use AI in the business to help give you the best optimal results, but we want to make sure that we're very clear in how we're using AI in the business. So you can then create a policy, go through that with them and get them to sign it off. And then you're both kind of covered and you're both understanding what's happening, how their data is being used and what the risks are. And it's their choice whether they sign on to that or not, okay? But have something in place so that you've got that policy there. Okay, so I've seen a couple of questions come in, so let me just have a look and see what people are saying. James says, just print to PDF by changing your printer and that will do it. Okay, so James, you're saying I could just print it off, right? But maybe I don't want to print it off. Maybe I want to save it digitally. So in that case, I would use that little workaround that I showed you on there. I'd go to the print, I'd save it, I'd view it as a PDF and then save it as a PDF. So not sure that was a question, but there we go anyway. Value pricing, so I'm assuming this is Mark's watching. Given that ChatGPT went down a few days ago, it's good to have Claude account as a backup. Yeah, so that's what I said. You're kind of at a loss without it now that we use it so often, but it's good to have that backup one that you know would work. But I also just use them side by side sometimes, so when they're both working, I use them side by side and see which one gets the answer that I prefer. Dipen, is that right? Dipen asks, how do you use connectors on the mobile app? That is a good question. I've not tried that yet. I've got my mobile right here, so I could have a quick look, but this is on the free version, which I don't think I have. Yeah, no, I don't. You don't have connectors on the free version, so I don't have the answer for that for you right now. I imagine if you go to your settings and you have a look in your settings, there might be an option in there that says connectors, and you might be able to connect it from there. So you might just need to have a look at that. Mindy says, can you look up photos by description? That's a good question. Considering the fact that it's not even perfect yet with the written files and pulling through the right file that I've asked for in written terms, I think it might struggle at this stage with photos. I haven't tested that in any sense, but that would be interesting to see if it can do that. What might be the way to go forward is to put those images into a specific file and then tell it which file you want it to look at. Say you've made a file, it's in this root folder, and you need to go to this file, this folder, this folder, this folder, and look at these images. It might do a bit better if you give it that extra bit of here's how to find that, and then it might look at it. But I haven't tested that myself. It would be interesting to see how it fares with using photos, yeah. Okay, so I think that's all of the questions that I have. So thanks everybody for coming today. If anybody is in the academy, I have an advanced pricing session next Monday, so I will see some of you there hopefully. I think Mark has another live stream in next week, it might be the week after. But yeah, just make sure you keep an eye out. If you're in our email list, we'll let you know. But other than that, thanks everybody. Hopefully that's been a good informative session. Have a go with deep research, have a go with Claude if you've not used Claude before. Have a go with the integrations, and just make sure you are being safe and you have taken the necessary precautions to use them sensibly. But thanks everybody. I'll play some music to see you out. Mark says his session's next Thursday, so there you go, put that date in your diaries. I'll play some music to see you out, and thanks everybody, and see you on the next one. Bye guys.